Hey guys, welcome back to more stories. In this video, OP explains how she paid for her house in cash, how she has no utility bills and get free food. She restarted her life in a rural area. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is titled, "They tried to scam me, but it cost them $1.8 million. A year out of school in the early 1990s, I procured a job as a business analyst for a large family-owned tech company. This business was located in the booming heart of technology at the time and was very profitable. As tech took over the next decade, the company thrived and remained family-owned. What was a rich family and company became exceedingly wealthy with a valuation/net worth in the high 9/low 10 figures. The family that owned it was quite neurotic, very moody, and had a reputation as a very ruthless, greedy when it came to financing, deal-making, employees, etc. I truly believe this is what held them back from ultimately becoming a household name as a company. As I progressed in the company, I gained more and more face time with the owners. I worked on some projects directly with ownership that really paid off and gained me even greater access to their inner circle. Now, like a lot of people at the time, and particularly those who worked in tech, I was heavily invested in tech stocks. I discussed some of my investments and gains with ownership as casual conversation, though investing had nothing to do with my role in the company. That is until one day in the late 1999, when the owner came to me and asked me if I would invest some of his personal money. He wanted me to take big risks to see if they would pay off using $1 million of his personal money. I was a bit hesitant, but still being in my late 20s and wanting to prove myself, I said I would. I asked for a written agreement where they acknowledged this was not my role in the company, was a personal matter between the owner and me, and to document my compensation for this side arrangements, aka 20% of all profits. Around the same time, and by working in the industry, I started to notice the weakness associated with a lot of tech companies. They just were not living up to their hype and stock price, and some seemed like they were starting to run out of money. I had no inside information, just a strong sense of which companies were struggling based on my work in the business, and based on this sense I started using both my money and the owner's money to short tech companies just after the new year in 2000. For anyone unfamiliar with shorting, it means if the value of a stock decreases, the value of the investment increases. I had a few long positions, but my overall position was very short. Since the owner wanted big risk and big reward, I used his money and obtained leverage or margin from the financial institution where I maintained both his and my trading accounts. The accounts were separate, but both under my name. Again, I documented this and gained consent. Well, both my account and his suffered some moderate losses in the first 2 months of 2000 before the bubble began to burst, and both accounts, but his in particular, began to skyrocket. Ownership's pettiness. Well, in June the company began to suffer a downturn. We were still profitable, but since we provided tech services and products, we were not immune to weakness in the broader market. I had not informed the owner of my short strategy. He came to me one day and asked how his money was doing, saying he suspected it was way down like the general market. To his surprise, I informed him that while we still had some money tied up in options, puts and shorts, but based on the positions I had closed, there was $1.35 million in cash sitting in the account that belonged to him. Again, I still had a bunch of open positions, which, if memory serves me right, were worth about $1 million on that date, but the positions I had closed had yielded $1.35 million in cash just sitting in his account, which was in my name. The owner, either through ignorance or lack of attention, said, "Great, $1.35 million, fantastic work in this down market. Will you please wire it to me?" I responded that I would, but would be taking my 20% of the $350,000 profit or $70,000 before wiring him the $280K. I also reminded him that I still had open positions that had yet to pay off or close, but did not state the amount. He once again appeared not to understand or comprehend the open position statement, but instead totally focused on and became incensed about my rightful claim for $70,000. He went on and on about how times were tough, that I should be grateful for a job, and particularly at my young age, and the entire $350,000 was necessary for him and the company. I knew this was not true based on my position within the company, and worse, this was my first time personally experiencing the greed and corrupt nature that served as the basis for ownership's reputation. So now onto my revenge. Since after 2 separate conversations, the owner did not seem to grasp that the open positions would yield at least some income and thus additional profit, I decided not to mention it again. I sent him back the entire 1.35 million and continued to manage the open positions to the best of my ability. And here's the kicker, the owner never brought it up again. He seemed to think the 1.35 million payment was the entire value of the account and never understood or remembered that open positions still existed. He never asked for records, tax documents, or any time of audit or financials. Given the fact that he was dishonest with me, I did not feel the need to disabuse him of that notion. Ultimately, after a bit more net gain, I covered all of the shorts and exercised all of the options, puts in this case, for an additional $1.8 million. I worked for the company for 3 more years and the owner never asked about it during my tenure. After I gave notice or since, I know it's a bit crass and even shady AF, but given his dishonesty with me over the 70k, I felt justified in keeping the additional $1.8 million. I paid taxes on the gain, long-term capital gain, and went on my way with a fantastic nest egg. Nobody has asked about it since, and I've only told the story to a few people, and even then only after the statute of limitations passed. The final ironic cherry on top of this sundae is that during my remaining 3 years I gained greater influence with ownership and position within the company because they considered me loyal for giving the 1.35 million back and not making too much of a stink about the $70,000 profit. Little did they know, I got the better of them. The company eventually folded due to family disputes, but my understanding is that ownership walked away in very good financial positions. They likely could have been a much better and greater company had they not practiced the same dishonesty that they showed me with their vendors, clients, and employees. And yeah, Ripe Stars, if you enjoy these malicious compliance/revenge business stories, then please let me know in the comments. And now let's move on to the title story, which is titled, How I Paid for My House in Cash, Have No Utility Bills and Free Food. I realized one afternoon a few years ago while I was busy typing away at my office job that this busy and frantic lifestyle was just not for me. I hated, like most, the repetitive and pointless pattern of each day. Basically, I wanted a change. So a few months after finalizing this decision, I moved from the US all the way to Tanzania. I know, quite a jump. In my youth I traveled through here and ended up coming back to stay for a month and I loved it. So yeah, it was not completely new for me. The main thing I loved to watch and see when I first visited was all the people who seemed to have their own self-sufficient lands dotted around the country. You would drive past some land where perhaps a family lives with all the sources they need to grow their own food and even fetch water. It fascinated me and made me wonder what it would be like to live in such a peaceful and carefree way. For the past 10 years leading up to my move, I had been building and growing my own business. I decided to sell the business using the money for my big move. I also sold my car and most of the furniture, things I couldn't bring with me. I would like to clarify that alongside this, I lived very frugally. I wanted to have as much as I could for this next journey in my life. Before I left, I secured a small plot of land in Tanzania. It's in an area where I knew I would have some neighbors doing the same self-sufficient lifestyle as I planned. The only thing that existed on that small bit of land once I arrived though was a small hut just big enough for my sleeping bag and my belongings. It was not ideal, but I knew this was what I would be up for once arriving. I knew I had to build my world from the ground up and I couldn't wait to get started. After seeking out all the necessary building supplies and materials, I began building. I watched tutorials for help and even started my own YouTube channel to document my progress, where my growing fan base gave me tips and tricks to help with the builds. Basically, I built a home with some solar panels attached, rainwater collection system, and the rest being used for my agricultural needs, aka crops and animals. At the time I only had a chicken, but now I have a cow as well, giving me plenty of milk. The first 6 months of my time here was just building and working, constantly grinding for that perfect home. And then at one point I had it. One afternoon, I could say I was finished. I sat down on a small wooden chair on my porch, water from my collection system in hand, and I felt my troubles disappear. Until I heard it. A truck. Not uncommon from the States, but out here there were no trucks. The roads were too small in these parts and nobody would need one. There were only very few people in this neighborhood, if you would call it that, who even owned any sort of vehicle, and even if they did, it would more than likely be a motorbike. I walked over to the edge of my land where I could see the road and saw a woman stood at the plot next to me, guiding the truck over. "What are you staring at?" she suddenly yelled across at me. "Oh, nothing. Sorry for disturbing you," I replied and quickly ducked back into my home. I thought she might have worked with whoever was in the truck, but in fact she turned out to be my new neighbor. From the first interaction, I'm sure it's not hard to guess that she ended up, well, not being the most pleasant. I woke up to knocking the next day. "Hello, can I help you?" I asked, confused as this woman who I'd seen yesterday had decided to just waltz in. Guess I wouldn't have minded that if she was here to be pleasant, but she certainly was not. "I need your tools," she stated, holding out her hand. "Sorry?" I asked. "Your tools," she rolled her eyes. "For building. I need to build my house. In fact, you come over and help." "Sorry, I'm still not following. You want me to help build your house?" I asked, knowing how long it took to build mine. That would be quite a task. "Yes, you've built yours or whatever, and I don't know what I'm doing, so come on." She began walking away, but I stayed put. "Come on," she demanded, beckoning me with her hand. I shook my head. "I'm terribly sorry, but I have to decline." Okay, maybe I could have helped, but helping on day one meant that every day I would be helping, and maybe if she was polite it would be different. "What? You don't get to say no. Who do you think you are?" "Why can't I say no?" I asked. The cheek of this woman. She rolled her eyes once more. "Because I cannot build a damn house on my own." Okay, then why did you buy a plot of land to just do that? "Because I assumed people around here would do it for me." "Do it for you? You were not even planning on helping?" "Well, I'm sure you can do most of the work." No, sorry, you're going to have to find someone else." "Wow, that's not very neighborly." "Okay, well, hand me your tools." I might have actually loaned my tools out to someone who seemed friendly and kind, but to this woman? No. Nope, sorry. I shrugged and began heading inside. "Who do you think you are to not help out your fellow neighbor?" I just ignored her at this point and shut my door. I walked inside feeling the anxiousness I felt back in the States, and I hated it. I knew this was going to go somewhere nasty. I just had a gut feeling. And I was right. For the following week, the woman came around every day to ask for stuff, either the tools again or maybe even some food and water. I would give her some water a few times because I knew how far away our nearest shop was and didn't actually want the woman to collapse on my watch, but food? There was a market and I was not about to start dishing out my self-sufficient supply. Listen, I'm trying to live a self-sufficient lifestyle. I cannot be giving things out because I'm growing and producing just enough for myself. I tried to explain one afternoon when she came around after for nearly everything in my garden. She did not reply, which I found odd, and a few days later I started hearing these rumors that had been spread about me in the local community. She was not even trying to hide the fact that they were coming from her, as each person would openly claim that she had said that I was stealing water from a shared well, and said shared well does not exist, by the way, so thankfully most of the people she had spoken to did not believe her. She also stated that I was squatting and that I was a dangerous foreigner, the latter just being rude. I came home from a walk one morning to find trash covered all over my garden. "See, this is how you share," my neighbor screamed as she poured more trash everywhere before running back over to her land where she had begun to build a small home. I did not even respond, deciding to be the bigger person here. I cleared up the trash and moved some random animals that she had let into my garden to destroy my crops. 1 week later was when I realized things had seriously escalated. "Good day, sir. We're just calling around regarding an investigation that has been opened about this land," was what greeted me one morning by a local officer. "What sort of investigation?" I asked. "Well, someone has reported that this land belongs to their family and that you might be happening to live here illegally. We have seen the documents and she seems to be telling the truth," the officer stated. "You will be able to hire a lawyer to attempt to battle these charges, but otherwise this property will be seized. You have 1 month. The officer then handed me some papers confirming what he had just said. As they left, I saw my neighbor staring at me from her plot, and she shrugged her shoulders and did a fake yawn before throwing a rude gesture in my direction. I knew it was her, obviously, who else? I also knew that she must have made fraudulent documents because there was no way she owned this property. I knew I did, and I had my own documents to prove it. So I did what the officer said and hired a lawyer, which annoyed me slightly because this was the messy lifestyle I was trying to get away from. But I guess one more jump into this world would not hurt anyone, and hey, it was quite nice being able to shock her that I do in fact have a few brain cells to rub together in terms of legality of property, clearly unlike some others. As I mentioned, I have some social media accounts to document my journey, and I decided to share what was happening with them. Everyone supported me, which made me feel less alone in all of this, and it ended up going slightly viral. "Remove this," my neighbor demanded, banging on my door in the early hours. I looked out my window where she shoved her phone into my face, showing my profile and the videos I had made about her. I shrugged my shoulders and went back to sleep. My lawyer gathered all the evidence he needed that I owned the land, the materials and everything in between. We fought the case and had a mini court meeting to check over the documents. The judge of sorts looked over everything and said, "These are fraudulent," he confirmed, waving my neighbor's documents in the air. "Lies, nothing but lies," she wailed, slamming her hands onto her desk. "You will pay for his legal fees." The judge gestured at me, "And this is your official warning to leave him alone." "Thin ice, you're on thin ice. You cannot make me do that. How am I supposed to continue building my home with no money? I spend most of it on a truck to get all my belongings here," she continued, sobbing. "Ma'am, you needed to think of that before lying to officials. You're getting off light, don't push it," the judge replied, shaking his head. We walked out of the local official building and I thought we would go our separate ways, but she decided to follow me. It made me scared, so I decided to walk over to our local community building, where there was currently some little gathering going on. "This man right here has wronged me," the woman screamed, and from there went on a rant for a good 30 minutes. It did not end very well for her, as people just started answering back all the things that she had done and demanded that she apologize to me. She did not, of course, but a week later she had moved out. It all happened so quickly, I wonder where she went and I wonder if she'll ever be back. I sure hope not. Since then though, I've been improving my off-grid home and expanding my garden. I love my new lifestyle and I hope I live the rest of it out in peace. And the next one is a relationship am I the a-hole story. So my 25 female father married my stepsister's 23 female's mother when I was 4 and she was 3. We have lived together most of our lives and are a family. She and I were extremely close. She developed cancer when she was 14 and was sick for about 2 years. She has since made a full recovery. During that time my parents became understandably overprotective. They also asked a lot of me. I quit my extracurriculars so I could get a job, the money went towards her medical bills and so I could drive her to appointments. I did not go to dances and any fun activities that I did need to include her. I did almost all of this willingly, the exception being having to quit my high school volleyball team. I did throw a bit of a tantrum about that, but that was swiftly punished. And I think having one emotional breakdown was pretty chill given the circumstances. Anyhow, I go to college and meet my ex, we will call him Ben, when I'm a junior. We fall in love, blah blah blah, he and I move in together when we graduate, so we've been living together for about 3 years. We were serious until July when I walked into my bedroom and saw him screwing my sister. I broke it off, tears were shed, he moved out, etc. My sister apologized at first, but then backed off. I thought she was giving me space, but last week she called and asked if we could meet up. She told me that she and Ben were in love and were just telling me as a courtesy before they started posting photos online. Distraught, I left her in the restaurant by herself and did not pay my portion of the bill. She later Venmo'd me asking for money. She told my parents, who then called me to their house telling me how disappointed in me they are for not supporting my sister's relationship with Ben. They brought up the fact that because she had cancer as a teenager, she never learned proper social etiquette and has a hard time meeting people. I don't buy this, in part because I've seen her socialize just fine, and since we spent a good chunk of time she was sick together, that would also mean that I should have bad social skills as well by that logic. They then told me that if I don't accept my sister and Ben's relationship, they may have to go no contact with me. I reminded them that I'm also their daughter and they should understand my point of view, but they are adamant that this is about me being jealous of her. For the record, I'm not jealous of her, I'm not upset that Ben picked her over me, I'm sad about the end of the relationship and I do feel betrayed, but Lord knows that I don't want to be with a cheater. What I'm upset about is the fact that my sister chose Ben over me. Also, that she slept with Ben knowing that he and I were in a long-term committed relationship and continues to be with him knowing how much it hurts me. Now no one in my immediate family is talking to me, and I'm getting messages from aunts and uncles and cousins telling me that I'm an a-hole and a selfish Karen. So yeah, ripe stars, let me know what you think about this story. Do you feel that OP is the a-hole here or not? But honestly, I would be surprised if anyone says that OP is the a-hole. That family sounds absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, comment number 1, not the a-hole, her lack of social etiquette is due to their lack of parenting, not cancer. You are better off without these people. ETA, her asking you to a restaurant to deliver bad news and then requesting money for it is ridiculous. She sucks. Comment number 2, not the a-hole, she wanted you to Venmo her money. Damn, you already Venmo'd a BF to her. She is a sad, greedy, jealous individual who uses her illness to excuse her bad behavior. If you take her cancer out of the equation, then it's likely no one in the family would even talk to her. Having cancer does not give her a get-out-of-jail-free card. It is not an excuse for betraying you, she is a massive a-hole. Update number 1, sometimes you can only laugh. I just got off the phone with my cousin who saw this post and said he could explain a few things. So I asked him why he was on Reddit instead of school. He asked me why I was on Reddit instead of work and I said touché. Well, fair point I guess. He told me that after my conversation with my mom, she went to his house and talked to my aunt. And here's the deal. Turns out my sister is not only in a relationship with Ben, but she is also 4 months pregnant. Which means she and Ben were effing for longer than I had even guessed. Apparently my parents are so adamant that I forgive her because I'm already ruining their experience of their first grandchild. That's right, I'm less important than my stepmom posting ultrasounds to Facebook. This is where we are at. Anyhow, I called out of work sick the rest of the day and I'm gonna drink a lot of alcohol. Like a lot. And then I start thinking about what the hell I'm gonna do. Update number 2 to the story. I was asked for an update and thus here I am. So 2 things to clarify before I update. I did not have a crappy childhood. The favoritism started when my sister was diagnosed. I moved out soon after and have been pretty independent since then. Not saying that how my parents treated me during those years were a-okay, but I was not Cinderella. I didn't drink myself into oblivion, I had 2 white wine spritzers. But anyway, I appreciate the concern from folks. Anyhow, the update. I got in touch with my sister and asked her to meet up again at a park, no bill involved. I asked her if she was pregnant and she told me the truth. She said she wanted us to still be in each other's lives and that she wanted me to be in her babies. And to be honest, ripe stars, I don't understand that part of the story. Maybe I copied something wrong from the subreddit or whatever, but I just couldn't see the mistake. Anyway, a redditor, and I forget who, I'm sorry, mentioned that she may ask me to be the godmother, and that person was correct. But as many of you pointed out, if I did not cut her off, I would just become her bank and daycare employee. So I told her I could no longer be in her life, and I left her crying on a park bench and I felt like the worst person in the world. I emailed my parents and told them how betrayed I felt and that I would be cutting off contact with them. To my stepmom's credit, she apologized and she explained that she never thought my sister would live to have kids and that she let her emotion over that get the better of her. Understandable, my dad said nothing, which is honestly what sucked the worst about all of this. Ben tried messaging me from a burner account for the first time since the breakup, but I blocked him without reading it. I did not go nuclear and post a story to Facebook as some suggested, but I sent an email to the extended family members who I care about. I explained the situation and how I would be distancing myself from my family. Some have made it an us versus them situation, and as much as I appreciate the support, feeling like I'm in some valiant battle just makes me more tired. So I haven't been talking too much of anyone in my family. I feel lonely and crappy, but I think I made the right decision. Anyhow, not the most exciting update in the world, but hopefully everyone knows that I'm not dead. I do really appreciate the support I've gotten. It made me smile during a really bad time. And hey, if anyone in the greater Boston area wants an extra guest at Thanksgiving, let me know. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible, and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.